At Christmas dinner, I caught my parents discussing their plan to move my sister's family into my $400K condo without paying a dime, as if it were already theirs. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. The clink of glasses, the soft hum of holiday music, the glow of warm lights, everything continued as if nothing had shifted. But it had. My father leaned in, voice low but certain, mapping out timelines. My mother nodded, already deciding which room would go to which child. My sister didn't protest. She smiled. Not one of them looked at me. I sat there, invisible in a home I paid for, listening to them divide my life into neat, convenient pieces. My name wasn't mentioned once. Not as the owner. Not as a son. Just an obstacle they'd already decided to remove. So, I smiled, quietly, carefully, and said nothing at all. I bought that condo 3 years ago. The same month I stopped asking my parents for anything. Approval. Advice or help I already knew wouldn't come. It wasn't luck. It was 12-hour shifts, skipped weekends, and a quiet discipline no one ever noticed because I never complained. In our family, silence was mistaken for weakness. My sister had always been the center of gravity. When she struggled, it was a crisis. When I succeeded, it was expected. She married young, had 2 kids, and drifted from one unstable situation to another. Each time, my parents stepped in. Financially, emotionally, endlessly. I wasn't asked to help. It was assumed. I learned early that what I built would never fully belong to me in their eyes. When I got my first promotion, my father said, "About time." When I closed on the condo, my mother asked how soon I'd be settled enough to share it. I laughed then, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. They didn't see boundaries, only resources, and I had become one, so I kept my distance. Polite calls, short visits, no arguments. I let them believe I was still the same quiet son who would bend, adjust, make room, because it was easier for them to underestimate me than to understand me. And I had learned to let that work in my favor. It didn't start at Christmas. That was just the first time I heard them say it out loud. A week earlier, my mother had asked for a spare key, just in case. Her tone was light, almost rehearsed. When I hesitated, she smiled, tight, patient, and said, "We're family." I handed it over. Not because I agreed, but because I wanted to see how far they'd go. They didn't wait long. My sister began mentioning the condo casually, like it was already hers. "The kids would love the balcony," she said one evening, eyes flicking toward me, measuring my reaction. When I didn't respond, she kept going. "And the schools nearby are better." My father nodded, approving as if we were discussing a done deal. No one asked me. At dinner, they spoke around me, not to me. Plans formed in half sentences and knowing. Glances, dates, logistics, even furniture. My mother once paused, finally looking in my direction, and for a moment I thought she might ask. Instead, she said, "You've always been flexible." Flexible. I repeated that word in my head as I watched them continue. Calm and certain, mistaking my silence for consent. They thought I was adjusting. They didn't realize I was observing. The moment didn't come with raised voices or some dramatic confrontation. It arrived quietly, the way most truths do, uninvited, undeniable. 2 nights after Christmas, I stopped by the condo without telling anyone. I hadn't planned to, but something in me needed to see it again on my own terms. The hallway smelled faintly of fresh paint. When I unlocked the door, it opened too easily. Inside, the air felt disturbed. The spare key. My mother had used it. Nothing was stolen, nothing obviously out of place, but small details gave them away. The kitchen cabinets were slightly rearranged. A measuring tape sat on the counter, coiled neatly like it belonged there. In the second bedroom, a piece of paper lay folded on the windowsill. Dimensions, written in my father's handwriting. They hadn't just planned it. They had started. I stood there for a long moment, taking it all in, letting the weight settle properly this time. Not anger, not even betrayal in the loud emotional sense, just clarity. They weren't going to ask. They weren't going to stop. And if I hesitated even once, they would take everything I had built and call it family support. That was the moment something in me shifted. Clean, precise, final. I locked the door behind me, slipped the key into my pocket, and made a decision they would never see coming. I didn't confront them. There was nothing to argue about. You can't negotiate with people who've already decided the outcome. Instead, I opened my laptop that same night and treated it like a transaction. I had bought the condo in my name alone. Clean title. No cosigners, no shared liability. Every document was exactly where it needed to be. I reviewed the purchase agreement, the deed, the access permissions. Legally, they had nothing. Not even a foothold. The spare key was the only mistake I'd made. I corrected it the next morning. New locks. Digital access reset. Building management updated. No one enters without my authorization. The concierge didn't ask questions. I'd always been the only registered owner. Then I called an agent I trusted. We kept it simple. Off-market interest first. Quiet inquiries. No listings that could circle back to family. Within days, we had serious offers. I chose one that could close fast. Cash. Minimal contingencies. No delays. No noise. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't hint. I let them keep talking, keep planning, keep measuring rooms that would never be theirs. Because the strongest position isn't loud. It's invisible. Right up until the moment it isn't. The closing took less than an hour. A quiet office, neutral walls, a stack of papers that reduced 3 years of work into signatures and initials. I read everything once, then again. Not because I doubted it, but because I respected it. This was the line between what was mine and what would never be touched. The buyer was efficient. Cash. No small talk. When it was done, I handed over the keys. Every copy accounted for. The agent gave a small nod, the kind professionals exchange when something is executed cleanly. No drama, no complications, just finality. I walked out of the building without looking back. The hallway lights flickered softly, the same way they always had. For a moment, I paused at the entrance, listening to the muted sounds of the city, grounding myself in the reality of what I'd just done. Then I left. I didn't announce it. I didn't warn them. I let time do the work for me. 3 days later, my phone started lighting up. At first, a few calls, then messages, then more calls, closer together, less composed. Questions turning into confusion, confusion sharpening into urgency. By the end of the night, there were 79 missed calls. I looked at the screen once, long enough to understand the weight of it. Then I turned the phone face down and let the silence answer for me. They didn't come to me first. They went to the building. I heard it later, how my parents showed up with boxes, my sister trailing behind with the kids, already speaking in that settled tone she used when she believed something was hers. The concierge stopped them at the desk. Polite, firm. The unit had been sold. Access revoked. New ownership. Confusion at first, then insistence. My father asking for clarification in that controlled voice he used when he expected rules to bend for him. My mother trying to smooth it over, smiling too much. My sister going quiet, but there was nothing to clarify. By the time they called me, the story had already shifted. It wasn't about moving anymore. It was about betrayal, mine apparently. How I could do something so drastic without telling them. How I embarrassed them. How I took it too far. I listened to one voicemail, my father's voice tight with disbelief, repeating the same question. Why would you do this to your family? I didn't answer, because for the first time the stakes were clear to everyone, not just me. This wasn't about property. It was about entitlement meeting a boundary it couldn't cross, and the silence they'd mistaken for weakness. It had just rewritten the entire story. I didn't block their numbers. I just stopped reaching for the phone. The silence between us stretched, unfamiliar at first, then steady, like a room finally cleared of noise you didn't realize was constant. In that space, things became simpler. Not easier, just clearer. I moved on quietly. A smaller place rented for now, temporary by design. I kept my routines intact, work, early mornings, late nights, but something had shifted beneath it all. For the first time, what I built felt like it belonged entirely to me. No expectations attached, no invisible claims waiting to surface. They sent messages for weeks, some angry, some pleading. A few almost reasonable, as if reframing the past could undo it. I read none of them past the preview, because there was nothing left to explain. I didn't hate them. That would have kept me tied to them in a way I no longer wanted. What I felt instead was distance, measured, intentional, earned. People like to believe family is a permanent contract, that access is guaranteed no matter the cost. But I learned something different. Access is given, and it can be taken back. I didn't lose a home. I reclaimed it, just not the one they were expecting.